beavers were once native to the British Isles and widespread across much of Europe and Asia. They were wiped out in the UK in the early 1500s, hunted for their scent sacs, meat and fur. By the end of the 19th century, only a few small groups remained in Europe. Today, European beavers have been brought back from the brink with reintroduction schemes in 27 European countries. In some places, they have been reintroduced simply because people want to see these charismatic mammals back where they belong. They can do great things for local tourism. More importantly, beaver reintroductions are helping land managers to enhance landscapes for a fraction of the cost of other methods. Beavers have an extraordinary ability to restore degraded habitats, and the trials here in Britain are bringing positive benefits to other wildlife, water quality, and even flood prevention. The Scottish beaver trial saw the very first beavers return to the UK in 2009. The positive effects they can have has led to the Scottish Government announcing that they can remain. While the return of these industrious creatures is mostly positive, the countryside and land use has changed enormously since beavers were last here in the 1500s. That's why it's important for us all to consider how beavers might live in a modern farmed landscape. We need to work out how humans and beavers could live alongside each other, and how potential problems can be resolved. The Devon Wildlife Trust's River Otter Beaver Trial has been working with farmers and local communities in East Devon, where a group of beavers have been reintroduced. The Trust has been monitoring and managing the beavers and taking a critical look as they begin to engineer areas alongside the river. The Cornwall Beaver project is the most recent in these reintroduction schemes. This groundbreaking trial gathered 2 years of baseline data that is now helping to monitor their effect on flow rates and water quality. This is Chris Jones. He's a local farmer from Laddock, Cornwall, who's working with Cornwall Wildlife Trust and Exeter University on the Cornwall Beaver project.
So far, everyone's been very, very positive about this, but there are bound to be some people who are either sceptical or perhaps a bit frightened about the impact of these animals.
One key area of concern is how beavers might affect fish. Contrary to popular belief, beavers do not eat fish, just vegetation. Where beaver populations re-establish, their activities can result in a mix of effects on fish, both positive and negative. In Norway, where beavers commonly share the rivers with salmon and trout, beavers are not seen as an issue for fisheries.
We're actually going on a trip to Bavaria very soon. The beavers were released in Bavaria 50 years ago, and they've had a lot of experience now, of course, in dealing with potential and actual human-beaver interactions.
As most of the schemes across the UK are in their infancy, Chris and Cheryl Marriott from Cornwall Wildlife Trust join a research trip to Bavaria, where beavers were released in the 60s.
Going to Bavaria is going to give us a chance to see these animals. They're fully populating whole river systems. They've been there for 50 years. So this gives us a chance to see what, on a big scale, beavers are capable of and how people have managed the impacts.
Over the next 6 days, the research group will meet people who have found ways of containing any problems that beavers might cause, so that they can live alongside these animals and reap the benefits this species can bring if properly managed. The group will be led by German beaver specialist Gerhard Schwab, who has been instrumental in the shaping of the management schemes now in place in Bavaria.
From a nature conservation point of view, beaver is great. He's creating biodiversity. If he builds a dam, he floods area, it's more water. You got more dragonflies, you got more fish, you get more amphibians. It's not only, if you have more amphibians, it's not only a higher variety of species and more animals, it's also more food for animals living on amphibians. So we get this black stork recovering Bavaria, and the first places where the black stork goes are the beaver ponds in forested areas. In the beginning, when the beavers were introduced, almost everybody was happy, because we didn't have any beavers at all, and you got a new species. It's a very attractive species, and as soon as the population was growing, the youngsters went into small drainage ditches, small creeks in arable land, and then we had the first problems, especially with farmland.
Beavers were reintroduced into Bavaria into areas of intense farming and arable land. Thomas Obser was farming in the region at the time of the release and talks to Chris about the problems he faced before management measures were put in place.
Ja, wir haben dann einige Probleme gehabt mit Schäden, wo unterminiert hat und dann die Höhle und dann sind sie mit Maschinen, mit Schlepper, mit Mähdrescher eingebrochen und hat große Schäden und manchmal ist eine Person große Aufregung und war schon, wenn da ein Bauer an sein Feld gekommen ist, wollte da ernten, gerade mit Zuckerrüben oder so und da war das ein Stausee, also das war nicht gut. Was sich einmal, also dass das beruhigt hat, war das, dass die Landwirte entschädigt werden für die Frostschäden und dann jetzt, dass Biber auch abgefangen werden dürfen und auch getötet werden dürfen. Das hat geholfen und es gibt also bei uns jetzt so Leben und Leben lassen. Also da.
How big is the problem of beavers in everything, in the whole sphere of farming?
2-3%.
2 to 3%.
Well, look, thank you very much indeed.
Ja. Viel Glück mit Biber.
In this part of Germany, they have Beaver Consultants, a network of volunteers who give free advice for people living near beavers or who have them on their land to ensure harmonious living side by side.
The main thing if you have a beaver problem is talk to the people. They're not angry then generally about beaver, they just want to know what to do and they need the information fast. So if somebody calls, it doesn't help if you say, okay, gonna come in 5 weeks. You have to be on the spot the next day, if possible the same day. And that's why we got the local beaver consultants. They're from general public. It's hunters, fishermen, it's farmers and nature conservation people. It's volunteers working for the county.
I think I'm 10 years right now in this job, and the first 2 years we got problems, but nobody calls me now. On the other side of the creek here, the beaver was too biting on the trees, and this guy come to me and he told me what happened, what can I do? Yeah? I showed him, take a wire and glue with sand and paint it, and he got no problem anymore. He says nothing, and if there is a problem, we will help you. That's what they want to know.
After repeated floods hit the town of Windsor, plans for a dam costing upwards of €1 million were put forward just as beavers established themselves upstream and started construction of their own. The beaver dam slowed water flow so well that only modest flood protection was then needed, saving the town €650,000. The beavers' extraordinary ability to engineer landscapes in this way is one of the leading economic arguments for their reintroduction. Susanne Morgenroth is a landowner living in southern Bavaria. 10 years ago, beavers moved onto her land and caused flooding in her horse's field. Susanne applied for government funding to create a clay bank to redirect the water flow away from the field. This simple and effective measure worked beautifully, and Susanne is even starting to see the positive effect on other wildlife. Numbers of bats and fish have increased because of the wetland habitat that the beavers have created. Across Bavaria, there are a number of sites that are state-owned, and beavers are left to engineer the land without any intervention to monitor their ability to restore habitats. The 150-metre dam system has seen the return of wildlife and biodiversity to densely populated areas. The Ruhr Valley is home to one of these large-scale study sites, offering a unique opportunity for biologist Ulrich Meblinger to monitor the long-term impacts beavers have on land if left undisturbed. Contrary to concerns that beaver dams would cause the disappearance of species like the golden-winged dragonfly, the dams themselves have become an important breeding ground for this species and create a nursing ground for young fish.
If you compare the problems and the benefit we get from the beaver, the decision should be easy for the beaver, because the problems he makes you can avoid. But there are a lot of effects of the beaver you cannot imitate. We cannot create a landscape like the beaver does.
The positive effects of beavers are for everybody. The general public not only likes biodiversity, also need biodiversity. You have the water management framework. You need more natural rivers. So instead of spending a digger to do it, let the beaver do it, saves a lot of money, and inform the people and help the people who might get problems. And if you let the beaver do the job, in 10 years it is again best biodiverse landscape.
Okay, Rasheen, well look, here we are at Munich Airport. It's the last day. Why is it important that we have this range of people on a trip like this?
I think it's really important because beavers are going to have a society-wide effect. So it's almost like you have to take people along on a journey because, we need to remember this is the first mammal we've brought back officially to Britain. It can have big changes on the environment. Those are largely positive, as we know. We've seen the biodiversity benefits, but they can be negative and they can inflict a small number of people. So I think as long as we take everyone on that journey, that's why it's always important to communicate and talk conflicts through.
What an incredible week, a real privilege to be there, learning from people who've had beavers back for 50 years. It was like a glimpse into a potential future. I was really intrigued to see how local people got involved with beavers, so to learn about how they use Beaver Consultants, and that reminded me of some of the volunteer networks that we've already got set up. So perhaps in a future with beavers we could be part of the solution to help landowners and others who are coming into conflict with beavers.
To see how management measures might be employed here in the UK, Chris and Cheryl have one last stop on their itinerary, visiting the River Otter Beaver Trial, where Jake Chant talks him through beaver management measures Devon Wildlife Trust have put in place. There's a lot of local support for the beavers in Devon. Tourism to the area has grown as it had become famous for the beavers, and local people fought for them to remain when their future was in doubt a few years ago.
So this is their patch, and what they had done is they'd popped a dam up just upstream of us to flood this small patch of woodland here. So that patch of woodland was their home, and they'd sort of turned it into a wet woodland, but unfortunately in doing that they'd raised the water level to a height that was too much for the farmer to tolerate. So we put the beaver deceiver in to reduce the water level. This is the outflow. The inflow is just tucked away up there, and you have a pipe that goes to one side of the dam, and it just means that the water level behind the dam is controlled. That meant that the farmer then was happy to say, yep, if the water level is like that, we can tolerate these beavers, which is what we wanted.
We've seen firsthand how living with beavers can really benefit local communities, as well as wildlife. Beavers can be a natural part of productively farmed landscapes, living alongside us. The experiences in Germany show that it can work if everyone's needs are considered. In 50 years' time, will our grandchildren come to know beavers as a familiar sight in our countryside? What a story that would be.